Welcome back to the Beyond Business podcast. Today we sat down with Matt Hazen, our creative ads director, and in the words of our producer, he said it was one of our best episodes yet because of not just the value, but the topic we're diving into. The ad world is pretty complicated, but Matt does a great job revisiting the history of ads in the past and where they're at now, and also looking forward to 2021 and beyond. So I think there's going to be value for you whether you're a startup or you've been in the industry for a long time, and Matt does a great job breaking it down and helping you understand the value of getting into this world, and it's not too late, so now's the time to dive in. So excited for you to join the conversation. All right, good to see you this morning, Matt. Thank you for waking up bright and early and sitting down with Justin and I to dive in, as we've kind of been the trend here. Would love to have a little bit of background about yourself, your role here at Beyond Blue, and the value, the tremendous value that you bring to our team and our clients here.
Yeah, my name's Matt. I run the ads here. I'm the ad specialist. A little bit about me. I am 22 years old.
Young gun.
23, actually. It's a little early.
Make me feel old.
Yeah. I have grown up in northern Colorado my whole life. Went to Loveland High, went to CSU for a year. Didn't really feel like I had a passion behind my degree at all. And I had a job at the time that, kind of allowed me to see what I could do for myself rather than test out what a degree could do for me. So was doing that. Long story short, that job, it just was too much. Didn't pan out the way I wanted it to, and I just wanted something that I wouldn't have to be so involved in terms of like extra hours spent that were just kind of like nothing was really happening, but I had to do it. I had to drive a lot, so I was like spending 3 or 4 hours in my car a day, and I was like, this is a waste of time, and I don't want to do this. So backing up, I guess, I was homeschooled as a kid up until 7th grade, so I was super used to teaching myself stuff, and that's when I kind of found my passion for learning ads and finding out, what online marketing can do and selling stuff online rather than, selling something face-to-face to someone. And so that really kind of combined my passions. And I really just found this to be something that I was super passionate about, and it didn't really seem like work to learn it. And so I just kind of committed myself to a couple hours here and there to just kind of pick it up. And then Hunter, my best friend, said, hey man, if you want, I need an ads manager. So if you can become proficient enough to do that by this date, like we can transition you over. And the rest is history. So that's kind of how I got started in it. But besides that, my role here at Beyond Blue is pretty much just managing all of our clients' ads, our own ads, and also, predicting trends and what's going to be going on in paid advertising in the future, as well as just kind of like strategically planning as far as, how things are moving and where they're going. I think, the biggest thing that I do on a day-to-day basis is just spend a lot of time in the accounts, managing daily budgets. It's not a glamorous job. It's not a job that, seems super fun when you look at it minute by minute. But when you hear, ads specialist, I create Facebook and Instagram ads, it sounds super cool. But there is a lot of things that are just like, making sure that, budgets aren't being overspent or money isn't being wasted, or doing keyword research or doing other stuff that is kind of on that more mundane things. It's not all just fun and games. But yeah, that's a little bit about me and what I do here.
I think I want to jump in here.
Sure.
I think you saw me kind of like leaning in, like
I'm reading your body language. It's just like a dog ready to jump on a boat.
Yes, yeah. So, because I'd like to kind of sit on this for a minute, because I think this is kind of important to hopefully kind of wrap it up in the conversation, which, I think you did a great job of kind of downplaying how important, like how awesome, like, and like how much detail that you're dealing with, and it's impossible in a, 45-minute hour podcast to even get into that much detail. But, I think it takes a unique individual to kind of do some of this stuff. And part of that is we see, which we were just kind of off camera, off radio, we were kind of talking a little bit about education, and it was interesting because it's like, I think that's something that some people might see, especially kind of older generations, as like, didn't go to college, doesn't have a degree. But these types of things, like now with the age of the internet, as far as being able to find things and people are kind of training through video, it's much easier to be trained and to find education on a lot of these types of platforms, specifically with ads, to learn that. There is not necessarily at a university a degree for ads, right? No. So like there's a big difference. So I think that's a really important distinction that, I think it actually probably enhances your skill set and enhances your kind of like marketability as an ads manager because of how you learned. You didn't go to school to go and like learn the, some of the silly things that you kind of go through, the prerequisites of everything that, every student has to go through. You just jumped in and started learning ads, and you became really good at it in a short amount of time. Speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends who went to CSU or other schools and got marketing degrees, and they might have had one paid advertising class, and it was like setting up accounts, and that was pretty much it. Like they don't know what's going on
from a professor who had probably never even been in an ad account,
right? Or you have
most likely,
yeah, or you have a professor that might know a little bit about it, but there is really no standard because this industry is so new. There's no textbook this is the textbook to learn ads. I mean, people have wrote books on it, but there's no like university book, that shows you this is how it is, because by the time something's written or wrote, everything's changed. The algorithms changed, the way you set it up. They've added things into Ads Manager that, like, at the end of the day, in a given month, a lot of different things could change. So the only way to really stay up to date on it is to find, and what I did is I just found, 2 or 3 people that I thought really knew what they were doing based on results, based on them doing it for their own businesses, not just saying, I can sell you an ads course that is going to, make your ads the best ads in the world, and you're going to have crazy returns and all this stuff. I found people who actually proved that they knew what they were doing because they were running multi-million-dollar e-commerce businesses, huge businesses in regards to, B2B stuff like that. And I just kind of studied under them, as well as YouTube. I mean, YouTube has more information today than ever before, and you can learn anything you want from it. You just got to be dedicated to actually watch it. And then once you watch something enough and kind of perfect, what you know about it, you have to do it. And I think that's where my progress really started to take shape. Was I really researched and learned for a solid, I think, about 4 to 6 months, while I was kind of transitioning out of my other job. And then kind of, right after that, I hit the ground running here. And I think I'm a big proponent of you learn by doing rather than watching, or, you can only learn so much from having someone tell you something. You have to do it yourself, and you have to get your feet wet to actually see, what it takes. And on a day-to-day schedule, what are your systems that you're putting in place to be able to manage these things, to be able to handle them, to see indicators of when you need to change or adjust or create new. There's so many different things that no one can fully prepare you for those things until you do it. And that's just another thing that, college, you're not really going to get an opportunity to do it unless you become an intern somewhere.
Yeah.
And, even then, is a business really going to let an intern manage a large sum of money on a daily basis for a client? You might get a look over someone's shoulder, but there's a low probability that they're going to just give you the keys and say, figure it out. Good luck.
Yeah.
Hope you've learned it.
Yeah.
So I think, for me, those were really the big things that allowed me to become very proficient in what I do very quickly, because I don't really think many other people get an opportunity to go straight from learning to straight to doing at such a scale that I did.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm a big proponent of just find something you're passionate about. And it's easy for you to watch hours and hours of it. And, it worked out for me. So
yeah, I think that's a unique position too, as a digital agency that we have, is because we have multiple clients in different industries.
Right.
So you're testing different ways to do different things within the ad campaign. And so you might find or think about something unique in one that may work for another. Where I don't think you necessarily get that from, again, reading a textbook or even just learning online. Like, business owner, again, we talked about this before we started the podcast, but, business owners a lot of times want to bootstrap and try to figure some of this stuff out on their own. That's great. And I would encourage people to do that if that's the means that they have. But there is a huge difference with the amount, how quickly things shift, algorithms change, everything happening, that you're essentially constantly learning. And even that thing you learned yesterday doesn't mean it's going to work today.
Right.
So I just feel that's like a really unique opportunity for what we have here, as far as you're learning constantly. It doesn't end, like a lot of things. And then the ability for us to, like, honestly work within different industries and test these things, and then maybe, cross-pollinate some of this stuff where we can, like, kind of look at, like, okay, in the, retail industry, it really worked for this. Now let's bring it over to something else. And
yeah, just kind of going off of what you said about, business owners trying to learn this, because we see a lot of the time people come in and, they've set up an ad account for their business, and they maybe threw, a couple $100 at it, and they're like, oh, it didn't work. Like, this is a scam.
Yeah.
And to be fair, when you don't really understand what you're doing and you just throw money at it, it is hard to get results, because you don't know. I mean, and you don't know what you don't know. As far as, like, should this be working, or is this standard, or, the thing is, you can't just Google, like, what is the average cost of getting a conversion on Google? I mean, there's some data that's starting to come out, but because this is so new, there's no way to really figure out, like, what's a good indicator for my business if you're just starting out. And two, when you're not efficient with your money and the way you're spending it, because you're just, like I said, getting your feet wet, learning to do what you've been watching, which many business owners kind of spend a little bit of time trying to figure out how to run PPC campaigns on Google, or, create a Facebook ad, and they just set it up with, like, their local audience, and, maybe put, like, one interest in, and just like, oh, this is what I saw. But just like you were saying with different industries, there are things that work and there are things that don't.
Yeah.
And when you're just experiencing something for the first time, there's no, foreknowledge of, well, this should work. This is where it should be after a day. Because that's the thing too. Like, sometimes it takes a week or two for a campaign to start optimizing. Yep. And if you don't know that, well, after a week or two and it's, not really going the way that you want it to, I'm just going to turn it off. This is a scam. This doesn't work. And I think that's really the hard part for someone who's trying to do it all, because it does take quite a bit of time. And the thing is, once you really kind of start diving into it, you get all these new nuances and you start learning things, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is just so overwhelming. Like, I don't even know where to start. Or you do start, and then you learn these other things, and you're like, oh, I'm not doing that. So I'm not qualified enough to do this, or I don't know, what I'm doing to the extent to be successful. And I think every business owner should know, a basic knowledge of everything that they're putting their business, they're putting money into in their business.
Yeah.
Like, I love when clients can talk to me about, oh, what was the CPC, or, and they know some of the lingo, and they know the important things, and we could, just talk to people on a more level basis, rather than having to try and really explain it from a deeper level. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I love when there's a client who understands it and can go in the account and see whether it's successful or not from what, they know.
Yeah.
But to get to that level where you really understand what's going on, you have to invest lots of money to really understand it.
Yeah.
To really be able to know what's working and to know trends, to know each platform. That's the other thing. I mean, you could spend $500 to $1,000 on Google and then say, oh, it kind of got Google down. Like, let me try and add Facebook now. And now you're starting from ground zero again.
Yeah.
Because every platform's so different. So
yeah. And I think that's important for business owners is basically, like, yes, paying a agency like us, it costs money. But we've seen it time and time again where the efficiencies of what we pick up by running a campaign successfully way outweighs the amount that they're actually paying us versus trying to do it on their own.
Right.
I think the other thing that's really unique that I'll touch on, and then Chris can jump back in here, is
it's great to sit on the sidelines.
Yeah.
It's a great conversation. It's easy for me.
That you kind of mentioned, which is almost like holding the clients or business owners' feet to the fire, right? Because things shift so rapidly. It doesn't mean everything's always going to work. That's a huge misconception we see in this industry all the time. If people just think like they're going to start running ads and it's going to be successful right away because like everything digital is successful. That's all you ever hear. But it takes time. It takes diligency. It takes like some effort to be able to see this through. And if you're not willing to do that, if you just shut it down after 2 weeks, like you might have shut the door right before it was about to take off.
Right.
Or you're collecting data to understand what isn't working. So then you can kind of shift that and put it into something that does. So I think that's just a really important thing that helps with an agency, almost takes that emotion out of it for the business owner, because now they're probably still really concerned about their money. But it's up to us to kind of continue bring them value and show that this is something that over time will work for them. So that's pretty awesome. But go ahead, Chris. So.
Nothing else to add there?
Yeah.
It's great. All the nuggets so far. Yeah, I wanted to circle back, Matt, on a point you made in your first opening introduction. And this is actually a comparison I never thought about specifically for you, but you came from in-person sales to online sales and wanted to do a brief history. If you look even just in the 20th century to now, you look at the jump from newspaper advertising to billboards and these traditional marketing methods, and then the TV came out and revolutionized ads that could actually move and engage with people, but you still were only reaching people at certain times a day. And now jump forward to the 21st century, and we have these devices where we're spending more time than ever in front of them. Right. And we're collecting data, for better or for worse, on the people using these devices. And so I loved that comparison you made of the sales and how you're still in sales mode, but it's now taking advantage of on an online platform. So I wanted to have a conversation about the power of not just advertising on Google, but social media, because in the past, if I was a clothing brand, I could put it in a newspaper ad and send it out across the country, but I have no guarantees of who's going to see that or read it. Whereas now you can segment by age, gender, a whole bunch of other factors and say, I have a pretty good idea of who my ideal customer is, and that's how I want to see this ad. And that level of targeting. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the mindset of the sales techniques that goes into that. And I think we can then transition that into our end as far as the morality of the kind of clients that we want to work with, because we have this power to hold and we want to make sure we're using it responsibly and not taking advantage of people. So
love that.
To start, can we talk a little bit about that unique piece and the power of digital advertising compared to traditional methods, and why now more than ever people should really be taking this seriously and investing in it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you touched on it, big time with TV ads. Like that was such a revolution from print ads. But even that in comparison to what we can do now is minuscule in being able to reach your ideal customer, especially, not only from a detail standpoint, but from a cost standpoint, because, before you'd have to pick your channel that most, matches your demographic, whether that be, I'm going to run the show, at 3:00 because that's when stay-at-home moms are, getting ready to clean the house or have the TV on, cleaning the house. They're about to go pick up their kids from school, or, late at night. And this is super stereotypical. I'm thinking like 50s, 60s, sure. Like dad's getting home and everyone's sitting around the family dinner table and everyone's watching TV. So, I mean, you really had to segment it more by like when people were home and when their eyes would be on the TV and what shows they were watching. And that was kind of as good as it got. You couldn't pick, I only want to, show to people who have kids. You couldn't do that then. Right. And Facebook's definitely trying to cut down on what you can target. It seems like every month or two there's certain interests or demographic features that are getting taken away because, a lot of people are hesitant when they get an ad for something that, like, how in the world do you know that fits my situation or that I need this? And so, there are a lot of, I think, legal things to come out in the future with advertising online and how specific you can be. But, just comparing that old scenario to what we can do now, anyone with $100 can reach a select amount of people that is their exact target audience. Not to say that they're going to be successful with that narrow of an audience. But if you want to reach, 10,000 people for a very specific message, you can do that now. And, hope for the best that those people respond to what you're saying. That just wasn't possible 5 years ago even. Right. And that's really, the power that we hold, as you were saying. We want to work with people who aren't exploiting this. And there's a lot of times that bad things have happened because of the amount of data that us as advertisers have access to. And I think that's also leading to those changes that are coming down in all different, advertising platforms, whether it be Facebook, Google, Pinterest, all of them, and what their policies are, what violates the policies, what you can advertise industry-wise, what claims you can make. Those are all big things that we have to take into account when we're advertising for someone. And one of the biggest things that, I see really as of late are false claims. And I think Facebook's really starting to crack down on stuff like that. There's just so many people who are trying to sell pipe dreams online. And I think that's the one disadvantage to all of this is online marketing has been tainted to some extent back when there were no policies in place because it was all so new and people could take advantage of these things and they were selling unethical products and services that weren't bringing the results that they were claiming. And so now that we're in this day and age where ads have come so far online since 2010 when Google started having ads, and 2015-ish when Facebook started really becoming a bigger ad platform. We kind of pay the price for that now, which is unfortunate because there's so many times where we do have a client who has an incredible service or an incredible product. However, we can't even sell those key selling points because Facebook says, no, can't do that. Google says, we can't advertise that industry because there's too much backlash in it, which is unfortunate, but that's kind of the game that we have to play, and knowing how to tote that line of selling a great product and a great service and not overselling it, because that's obviously every salesman has to learn where that line is, right. I think. And it's no different online either.
Yeah, and as you were talking about the shift from TV advertising to now, and like you said, taking your educated guesses on when your ideal market would be watching the TV, we now have the data to see how many people actually saw the ad. And we have the data now from a scary standpoint of we can actually track how successful that ad was. I think you look back at TV advertising and it was kind of an educated guess, or you kind of would do the best to put all the variables together and say, okay, we just put a couple million into this TV ad campaign for a few months and we saw an uptick in revenue, and we're going to kind of correlate those the best we can. Whereas now with the tracking we can give our clients, it's a direct ROI, or in the ad world, ROAS, return on ad spend, where we can say with super clear tracking, every dollar you gave us gave you X in return. Right. Whether it's 3 to 1 or 4 to 1. So yeah, I think that level of tracking, even just as with the social media platforms compared to TV, is pretty crazy. But yeah, to loop back to the piece about how Facebook and Google have even cracked down on the short time frame they've been advertisers, to loop this back to our conversation with John a few weeks ago. we were talking about with his classic saying that I think he gave somebody else credit. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but he always says that the fastest way to kill a bad product or service is good advertising. And so I want to dive into that a little bit and talk about how, like, let's say we have a restaurant, for example, that doesn't have good service and they're just trying to pump out food and cut costs and, make the best margin on their food. If they partner with someone like us and we start pushing out ads and bringing more business, well, now you might start getting more negative reviews and all of a sudden these holes are going to be opened up.
Yeah.
So wanted to talk a little bit about that from your end, as far as obviously Justin and I are the ones on the client relation side and communicating with them. But for you, what would be the standards you see, or if you're going to look into advertising, you need to make sure that these core pieces of your business are in check before you start opening the floodgates to potentially hurting your business, because throwing money into ads is not always the right decision at the time.
Yeah. Great point. From an ad standpoint, it's obviously really important to be able to deliver on what us as marketers are going to be using to sell your service or product. And in today's standards, it's even getting harder and harder because, I really believe that the power is in the consumer with all the information that we have now.
Yep.
And if you're not meeting the standards that they have for you, they're going to get upset and just go somewhere else and either call you and say, I want a refund, or call their credit card and say this person isn't doing good business, or leave you a good review or a bad review, just like you said. So in that sense, if you're spending money and having that come back as, chargebacks on your card or bad reviews, that's a no-go. That's really going to hurt your business and hurt your online reputation, which is really the biggest thing that we try to build. Sales is great, having a great return on ad spend from what, we're putting into the ads is a huge goal of ours. But beyond that, when you start getting deeper and deeper into paid ads, all we're really doing is just building your brand awareness and hopefully building your customer base or your email list, or, all of these overarching areas of your business where you're going to start to get sales for free because people trust you, people know you, people like what you have to sell. And so that's obviously the goal, is to, build your Instagram followers to a point where you can just put out a post and get sales. Right. Build your email list to where you put out an email blast for Black Friday and, you have your best month ever every year in November. And those are kind of the halo effects of paid advertising, is because you're just showing who you are to people. And if what you're showing to people or what you're providing to people isn't the quality or standard that people are expecting, those things, those intangibles that we can't track, they're never going to materialize, and you're always just going to be trying to live off of X amount of dollars in, X amount of dollars out. And, I believe it's more of a perpetual gain. Like when you first start, it's going to be slower, but as you keep investing, it's that snowball effect that really starts to take place. And a lot of the times you won't even see that stuff for years and years and years. Like the first long period, you're going to just see incremental growth, and it might not be big enough for you to see. I feel like us as marketers,
absolutely,
since we've been in it for so long and have seen many clients come through, we can start to realize that traction's building, that momentum's building. And, you just look back, a year from now, our followers were thousands less, or, our email list was at 200 and now it's at 5,000. And that list might not be converting at the level we want yet. But again, everything on the internet is just a trust game. And if you're just putting out signals that you're not providing a good service, people pick up on that so fast. People look at your reviews, and if you have bad reviews, it's over for you. And you might still get a few people who, reviews are fake and everyone pays for their reviews, or you can't make everyone happy, and the only people who leave reviews are people who have negative experiences. You hear those things a lot. So, I just to go back to what you were saying and kind of wrap this whole idea up, it's like really make sure that your business is in the best position possible, whether that be, providing a good shipping time Amazon has really hurt, I think, every small business in what expectations are from ordering something to getting it to your door. Because Amazon has 2-day free shipping. And not that many small businesses can provide 2-day free shipping. It's more like pay for shipping and wait 5 to 7 days or 3 to 5 days, you know? And so I think from a consumer standpoint, which I oftentimes have to put myself in the consumer's shoes, it's like I have $100 in my cart and I'm really excited to buy it. And then I get to the cart and there's like $7 in shipping. And I'm just like, oh, I don't want to pay $7 in shipping. And so I abandoned cart. And I think with the society that we live in today and the amount of self-gratification that we can get and the amount of options that are out there, it's kind of like literally at any given moment, if you're not really providing the very best that you can, there's always going to be an excuse or a reason for someone to say, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to purchase this. I'll just go somewhere else. Not to say that you have to be perfect right away. I think that's the great thing about ads. Just like you were saying, if there are some delinquencies in your business, like those will come to the surface and we'll be able to weed them out. And that's the cool thing is like, you know, you see your conversion rate at 1.5%, or you have a substantial amount of add to carts, but only 1/10 of the add to carts purchase. And you say, how can we make this better? And then you make a switch on your website, whether it be free shipping over X amount of dollars or other things, you know, similar to that. And then the next month you can see if that correlated right away. And so I think that's the awesome part of what we do is we get that information back so quick that we can adjust on the fly and really make sure that what we're doing isn't hurting someone's business. And so not to say that you have to be perfect right away, but you know, you definitely want to make sure that at least at the end result is quality. And I think that's the place to start. And everything else as far as the process can be smoothed out as more and more purchases come in because you're just getting that information.
I think the takeaway for this is that there are a hell of a lot of variables that go into trying to figure out what's successful in an ad and what's not. And that's important. And I think there's a couple of key points too, as far as like that I want to touch on from that little statement you had there is one, the consumer is smarter than ever, right? Like they have more resources to find out like and figure out if somebody is being honest or a good product, or like if you're doing something that is trying to take advantage of people, like you're going to be found out quicker than ever. Right. And so that's really important from a value base as far as what we try to bring to the table as a company is providing extreme value, right? And I think that's the mindset that a lot of business owners have to have is this, you know, like when consumers are coming to them, like providing them with great customer service and tons of value to where they want to leave them great reviews. They want to come back again. They want to tell their friends about it. That's the important part. And to me, honestly, like I think that's awesome because that's going to start weeding out the people who don't want to do that. And to me, that's bad business. So that's really cool. And it seems like there's also been this kind of this slight shift where ads have kind of been the Wild West for digital ads, right? Like there hasn't been a ton of, and so now it's becoming even more regulated and complicated and more expensive, which I think in turn says if you don't know what you're doing, it's even more important now to hire an agency that has been doing this for a long time and has been in it and kind of consistently in it. So we know what has previously worked. We know what things are shifting, and we kind of look forward to the future to kind of see what will potentially work and what are we going to test to make sure that we're not losing ground, right? Because that's a big important piece of this. So I think those are some great points and very well said from your side. So thanks, Matt. I learned a lot.
Well, I try.
I don't think we ever come away from conversations with Matt any dumber. It's always smarter.
Yes, yes.
To transition a little bit, we are recording this towards the end of 2020 here. And in a few weeks here, we're going to be sitting down and doing some recorded videos for all of our clients and kind of analyzing numbers for 2020. But really the focus and the meat of these videos is going to be preparing for what's ahead. Because it's always great to look and show there's been success. But again, the online world is always changing. Things are adapting and moving. And so we are continually trying to help our clients be proactive instead of reactive. I think 2020 threw a lot of loops that nobody was expecting that I think we handled well and are still continuing to battle through and support our clients and bring them value despite the many things going on. But would love to touch on 2021 and even further out from your standpoint as far as ads, and then maybe we can dive into just general marketing as far as the trends you're seeing and what we can prepare for 2021. And if we can try to take that from a small business owner who's just starting up and running things themselves to someone who has a pretty sizable company that is investing in digital marketing right now or is looking into it, and just what they can be aware of what's coming down the pipeline so they can start planning on their end.
Yeah, great point. I think even going back to what you just said, one of the things that is ever changing and is only more important coming into 2021 is ad costs. And just to go back to what you said too about ads being the wild, wild west. I mean, when ads first came out, it was kind of like the gold rush where everyone could get into it and you could really learn it fast and easy because there weren't that many people competing. So it's not like your ad quality had to be that great for it to work, because people weren't getting 10 ads every, 3 minutes they spend on Facebook, Instagram, or every time they search something on Google. And so, there was not a lot of barriers to entry for businesses. It was more or less just like getting behind it and realizing how valuable it could be, which I think a lot of people didn't see that. And so a lot of businesses missed out when it first started. But, nowadays ad costs are getting increasingly more expensive because there's always more people trying to advertise. And we have a lot of big advertisers coming onto these platforms because they are realizing how valuable they can be versus TV, radio, more traditional ways of spending money. And as these companies start hiring more of our age, it's becoming ever more clear that this is the way to go. And these ideas are being pushed in their companies. And so, they're bringing their spend over, and that's millions and millions and millions of dollars. So, I mean, even this presidential election, at one point, combined, the two candidates were spending, I think, $12 million a week just on Facebook.
Wow.
Which is Facebook and Instagram. They're owned by the same company, obviously, and ads are under the same platform. Just to make that clear. So I mean that's insane amount of money to be spending daily. To spend $1 million in an ad account in a day is crazy. And that really, that much spend has the power to reach almost every user on Facebook, which really hurts everyone else who doesn't have the budget to do that. And so, over 2020, we saw ad costs go to all-time lows when, what happened in March, can't say it. I think everyone knows, happened. A lot of advertisers were really scared, and a lot of in-person places were like, we're closed, so we're not going to spend money, because a lot of people pulled off the platform. We saw our lowest CPM, which is cost per 1,000 impressions. That's one of the biggest indicators of where the pricing is currently on the platform. So we saw those drop to all-time lows in the last 3 years, as well as, last month, October, we saw all-time highs. So it's really been a pretty big separation of what the highs and lows are this year. And that's only going to become more increasingly apparent in 2021. So you really got to know what you're doing if you want to get into this, or you got to find someone who does know what they're doing, because there are so many barriers to entry now. And I think too, with the amount of ads that are coming out and so many different placements, it's not just ads on your news feed. It's not just ads, at the top of the search bar, which is how it used to be. With more and more users coming on, it's all of these advertising platforms' goals to be able to handle the increase of users that want to spend money on their platform. So that's why all these different placements are coming out. Now we have story placements. Now we have, right column placements. We have in-stream ads, which pop up during videos. We have messenger ads. There's like literally an ad for every single space, every single inch of your computer or phone. on just about every app that you can be on or website. So because of that, more and more users are just like, I'm so done with this. Like if I see an ad, I'm just going to scroll. And, native content, having content that looks like it's a friend posting, for instance, you're on Facebook, Instagram, like being able to figure out the placement, what ratio it is, because all of these placements have different sizing, which is really important. Whether it be square 1x1 or 9x16 for a story, or super long and narrow for banner ads. All of these placements need to be specifically designed for the ratio of the screen, or else it's just going to look like an ad. It really, people can tell instantly now whether an ad is from an advertiser or if it's from someone who actually understands how you have to position your ads now, whether that be, the image itself, the copy, those are all things that either make people stop when they're scrolling past it or make people scroll faster. And so, that's another thing that I think in 2021 is only going to become more clear, because as more people jump into the ads industry and they read these books from 2018 about, well, here's how long your copy should be.
Yeah.
You should use emojis. You should have text in your videos. You should do these things. Those things, because they were done in 2018 and every advertiser did it, no one likes that anymore. And you have to know what people are engaging with and be able to monitor your click-through rate to be able to see how that's, really connecting with your audience. And so I think those are two of the biggest things that are going to become really, really apparent and important in 2021, because there's so many people that are really starting to realize the value of these platforms.
Were you looking at me there because I always ask you to put more emojis in your ads? Is that what was?
Try to flavor them up a little bit.
Yeah. One thing I do want to point out is I love how laser focused and how in the game you are that you wouldn't even mention COVID-19. I think we can say that on a podcast, right? But you can't say that in ad policy.
Well, we can't
right?
run it. We can't run that as
now. We can't run this podcast as an ad.
Yeah.
Justin just ruined it for everyone.
It's okay. I think I said it in both interviews with John and Joseph, so we're good.
So they're going to go through the whole podcast and listen to it, and then say you can't run it.
Well, that's the thing, is they have these, machines that can go through an hour-long video in 10 seconds.
Oh, so if I said Blovid 18, is that better?
That might work.
Blovid 18.
That would just be way better if that's what it was called in general.
I agree.
I think you made a really interesting point that actually ties back to what you were talking about of the long-term game. And the word in my head that you were bouncing around is brand loyalty and getting people to buy into what you're doing.
Right.
And that piece of, if you're advertising online, if you can get people to advocate for your brand, then the content looks even more natural.
Right.
And you have someone who's a trusted source sharing the information, and not to mention shares on Facebook are gold in my mind because they're free exposure. So I love how that ties together of these ads we're always going to be fighting this battle perpetually of, here's the new trend, advertisers jump on it, we have to switch it up now because people are getting tired of it.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you can invest in the brand loyalty, there's a couple brands I know of that I would recommend to anyone because they've earned my trust and earned my business. And I think that that word of mouth marketing per se isn't dead. It's just changed on how it functions now.
Right. Yeah. Big time. Social proof on ads is money in the bank, in my opinion.
Right.
That's as good as it gets comparatively to reviews. If an ad can have a ton of likes, ton of comments, and a share on it, if it's on Facebook, obviously,
which is social proof, right? That's what you mean by social proof.
Social proof is just other people engaging with your content. That's other people look at that stuff. And again, that ties back to native content. When your friend posts something, it's going to get a lot of likes because the people that they follow or the people that follow them are going to engage on it. Whereas if you have an ad that looks super spammy, has a bunch of emojis, and it's like long form copy, which is like what was super trending in like 2018 or beyond, before that, where people, didn't even believe in like selling people on the landing page. They just sold literally their whole story in half.
Yeah.
And a story about their grandma and their dog and, you know, all this other stuff in the ad itself. And people don't want to spend that much time reading something on Facebook.
Yeah.
Certain scenarios that can still work, but, you know, that is really how it's changing. And if, just like I was saying, that type of an ad, if it has 0 likes on it and 0 comments, no one's engaging on it, instantly people are going to know, oh, this is an ad.
Yeah.
And so that's why that's really important. And you know, more than ever, again, when you can create content that looks like a friend posted it, that's when you get people to repost it on their stories or say, oh, this account looks awesome, I'm going to go follow them. And so, you know, I see that as a huge victory. If our ads are generating followers, I know we're doing something right.
That's awesome. One thing, as I think we're probably going to be wrapping up soon, but one thing I want to just ask real quick for, you know, as short an answer as you can give is a lot of these things that we've been talking about today and I've been hearing from you. If I'm a business owner that doesn't know much about this, it seems very daunting and scary. Is it too late for people coming into 2021 now to jump on this train?
No.
Okay.
I think if you're trying to learn it yourself, just be ready to spend a lot of money and not waste a lot of money. It's not wasting money if you're learning something.
Like Hunter says, that's your priced education, right?
Right. I didn't pay to go to college,
Yeah.
but I've paid a lot of money to learn what I've, you know, acquired as a knowledge.
Yes.
And so, you know, just know that and don't see it as a loss. You know, if you can make money for your business running ads when you're first learning it, that's like a cherry on top because you're pretty much just paying to learn how to run ads.
Yeah.
Or just come to a business like ours where, you know, I can run your ads for you.
Yeah. I love it. Exactly.
That would be the way to go.
That's the answer I was looking for.
Yeah, there you go. To wrap this up, I just time and time again hear these stories of, let's just use a service business, for example. One of our clients is in the restoration world. And when we took over their ad account, you went in and on day one, they were telling me this horror story of previous marketers. And then they themselves tried to run a campaign for a few months. And you went in within 30 seconds, like, oh, I can see why they set up such and such campaign. And that's the worst kind of campaign you can run on Google. And they weren't tracking anything. So from your eyes, it's always, for the most part, something that is pretty evident to you, but it took a long time to get there. So I guess it's a question of really, if you don't have the resources, are you willing to spend the time and investment to educate yourself, or do you want to spend the investment in somebody who's already been educated and just pay for their resources and time while also investing in your business? So I think that's maybe a perfect wrap up. Matt, do you have any final thoughts before we sign off for the day?
No.
No.
I was thinking about trying to say something cool, but then I was like, this is gonna flop.
You want a little tagline?
You said enough cool things already today. So.
Well, Matt, thank you so much. I know even I got value out of this. I know Justin did, as always, and appreciate the time. And we hope to all of you out there watching, we hope you had multiple pieces of value throughout this. I think we had a lot of nuggets, and we'll certainly be bringing Matt back on in the near future to further explore this complicated world of ads. So thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.